And sadly, my home state of Wisconsin made the news again in an effort to remove not just any person here illegally, but somebody who had broken the law, an abuser, somebody who under normal circumstances would not be viewed favorably.
Wow.
In Wisconsin, stop the hearing. Let's not worry about putting this guy in jail. Let's let him sneak out the back door so he is not removed from this country.
She allows the public defender and the gentleman at issue to go out a side door. In the public hallway are the two DEA agents sitting there, ostensibly waiting for him.
Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin of Wisconsin said, quote, "This action fits into the deeply concerning pattern of this president's lawless behavior and undermining courts and Congress's checks on his power," unquote.
The message is crystal clear. If you cross the Trump administration, we will arrest you.
What's next for cleaning up the courts after Judge Dugan's arrest?
Oh,
Cleaning up the courts.
It's terrible that could happen with a judge. Is so ashamed. And we have to, look, we have to bring our...
I mean, notice the friendly media. What's going on with the cleaning up of the courts?
Country back from all these criminals that Biden allowed to come in. These are world-class criminals, and we have to be proud of our country. We can't.
I got a world-class criminal on my screen.
Well, we've had an interesting 2 weeks out of this building, and sadly, my home state of Wisconsin made the news again in an effort to remove not just any person here illegally, but somebody who had broken the law, an abuser, somebody who under normal circumstances would not be viewed favorably.
Wow.
In Wisconsin, stop the hearing. Let's not worry about putting this guy in jail. Let's let him sneak out the back door so he is not removed from this country.
That was Representative Glenn Grothman from Wisconsin. Representative Glenn Grothman. What a piece of shit he is. And he was talking about the arrest of a judge in Wisconsin, advocating for it when it was a gross abuse of power. Let's go to Democracy Now! For the real story of what happened to that judge last week.
Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman. We look now at how the Trump administration is escalating its attacks on judges. On Friday, FBI agents arrested a county judge in Milwaukee, Judge Hannah Dugan, and charged her with obstructing justice and concealing an individual from arrest. The FBI accuses her of helping an undocumented immigrant leave her courtroom in her Wisconsin courthouse April 18th to avoid arrest by agents waiting in the hallway. That day, a Mexican immigrant named Eduardo Flores Ruiz was before her in a hearing on battery charges he faced stemming from an argument over loud music with his roommate, the roommate's girlfriend, and her cousin. Flores Ruiz had been working in the U.S. for about 12 years as a cook in Milwaukee after he was first deported in 2013. The day before the hearing, an immigration judge had issued a warrant for his arrest. After he left Judge Dugan's courtroom, agents reportedly saw Flores Ruiz walking down the hallway to the elevator and leave the courthouse. They arrested him minutes later outside. Judge Dugan's arrest just this past Friday came a week after all this unfolded, has drawn massive backlash across the country. Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin of Wisconsin said, quote, "This action fits into the deeply concerning pattern of this president's lawless behavior and undermining courts and Congress's checks on his power," unquote. FBI Director Kash Patel is facing accusations he broke DOJ policy by posting a photo online of Judge Dugan
because it's for propaganda purposes.
On Saturday, protesters rallied outside the FBI building in St. Francis, Wisconsin, to protest the Trump administration's crackdown on immigrants and the arrest of Judge Dugan.
And to do what she did and respect everything she tried to do. People think we are not near fascism, but we are. They think it can't happen here, but it can and is happening here right now. And if we don't stop it before it gets too far along.
I think it's kind of too far along.
Germany was in the 30s and 40s.
Wisconsin Judge Hannah Dugan was released Friday after her arrest by the FBI. On Sunday, reporters asked President Trump about the case.
What's next for cleaning up the courts after Judge Dugan's arrest?
Oh, it's
Cleaning up the courts.
It's terrible that could happen with a judge. Is so ashamed. And we have to, look, we have to bring our...
I mean, notice the friendly media. A whitewashed version of the news. Hey, what's going on with the cleaning up of the courts?
country back from all these criminals that Biden allowed to come in. These are world-class criminals and people that are insane, people from jails, murderers, drug addicts, drug dealers. And, you know, we have a country. We have to be proud of our country. We can't.
I got a world-class criminal on my screen.
Stay, and we're just not going to allow it. So hopefully the Supreme Court will come to the rescue of our country.
For more, we're joined in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, by Ann Jacobs, a Milwaukee-based attorney who personally knows Judge Hannah Dugan, has appeared before her in court. Jacobs is also chair of the Wisconsin Elections Commission. And Jacobs, welcome to Democracy Now! What happened here?
It's a fascinating story, isn't it? And thank you for highlighting the fact that
Fascistic story.
The director of the FBI made a photograph of Judge Dugan being taken away in handcuffs, which is just appalling and such an abuse of power. What happened here was according to the complaint, immigration authorities, 6 people, 2 FBI, 2 ICE, a DE, and a couple of DEAs. I may have the numbers exactly wrong, but 6 people go to pick up this gentleman in court. Like courthouses across the country, we have metal detectors, so no guns allowed. And they come into the courthouse and they go to Judge Dugan's courtroom and they say, we're here to arrest this guy. And she says, we got a protocol. You have to go talk to the chief judge, whose courtroom is some distance away. And they say, fine. And she goes back in. The interesting part of all this is apparently 4 of the 6 go off to the chief judge's office, leaving the 2 DEA agents behind in the hallway. There's some lengthy discussion in the complaint about what happens in the courtroom.
Why DEA?
But I think it's undisputed, which is that she allows the public defender and the gentleman at issue to go out a side door. And from that side door, they exit onto the public hallway. In the public hallway are the 2 DEA agents sitting there, ostensibly waiting for him. The attorney and the gentleman come out into the hallway and they look around. This is in the complaint. They look around. Nothing happens to them. So they walk to the elevators and they go downstairs to leave the courthouse. The DEA agents, we don't know why, don't arrest him. One of them gets into the elevator with them.
Wait.
They go downstairs and then eventually he is arrested. That's the sum total of what really the accusations are against Judge Dugan. There's a lot of very breathless. She was stern. She walked quickly. She appeared angry. There's a lot of those sort of salacious tidbits. But in the end, the sum total of what she did is direct him to a side door and send him out to the public hallway.
To a public hallway where the agents
Yes.
could have gotten him there. But she did express anger, right, to the agents before he appeared in court that they were concerned that they would arrest him in her courtroom. Is that right?
That's certainly what the complaint says. And I want you to think about a couple of things. First of all, if you've ever met a judge, they're not always very happy when their courtroom is
No, they are not.
Secondly, and the assumption is that the only reason she's upset is that ICE is there to arrest him in her courtroom. In other words, that there's something about him that she is upset about. In her courtroom, she's in misdemeanor court. In her courtroom are witnesses, victims, and the like, for whom an ICE agent going around arresting people can really impede the justice for those folks. So it's not only the fact that somebody who's charged with the crime is getting arrested, and I'm simply reading into the complaint, it is equally logical to be upset about the fact that they're coming into a courtroom where you need to have everyone in the community, documented or not, be able to feel safe.
I wanted to go to Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States.
No one is above the law in this country. And if you are
Apparently Trump is.
If you are obstructing justice when you have victims sitting in a courtroom of domestic violence and you're escorting a criminal defendant out a back door, it will not be tolerated, and it is a crime in the United States of America.
So that was U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi speaking on Fox News. Ann Jacobs, your response.
As lawyers, we have really strong ethical rules on what we're allowed to say and what we're not allowed to say, in part to prevent impacting a court case, and especially for government attorneys who are required to be honest and accurate and everything else. And I think those sort of comments that she's making are unfortunate and designed to sort of taint the view of what happened here. It also makes it sound like this was going to be a trial and what have you. This was a pretrial hearing in misdemeanor court with an out of custody defendant. This is not some day of justice, as it were. It's a pretty ordinary day in a pretty ordinary court where you're going to have lots and lots of misdemeanors, persons charged with misdemeanors in the courtroom. And adjourning the case is not a denial of justice. It's a pretty ordinary thing. And she sent him out to a public corridor where law enforcement was waiting, and law enforcement looked at him and watched him walk to the elevators. It's just a bizarre story.
What message do you think the Trump administration is trying to send to judges as it loses one case after another, scores of cases around the country, whether we're talking about Trump-appointed judges, conservative judges, or not?
The message is crystal clear. If you cross the Trump administration, we will arrest you. I mean, I think that's literally what they are trying to do. So I think the goal is to chill judges from ruling against the Trump administration, requiring that they follow applicable laws and procedures when it comes to detentions, arrests, to require them to have valid warrants and the like. So certainly that's the intention of this, with the hopes that they can cudgel the judiciary into simply becoming meekly obedient to the executive branch.
Ann Jacobs, I want to thank you so much for being with us, an attorney based in Milwaukee.
Not the only judge they've arrested. This judge is now resigned, though, accused of harboring a fugitive. Apparently his daughter possibly was seeing this guy who was in the country illegally. Now the judge is resigned. This happened in New Mexico.
We continue to follow today's top story out of New Mexico. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement have arrested a former judge and his wife. This after federal law enforcement learned that their tenant, an alleged Tren de Aragua gang member, was arrested at his home. Thank you for choosing KTSM 9 News at 10. I'm Andy Morgan. Monica has the night off. Now we're also learning other Venezuelan nationals were arrested and are in HSI custody. An ICE spokeswoman said the former judge, Joel Cano, and his wife, Nancy Cano, was taken into custody earlier today as part of an ongoing HSI-led criminal investigation. This was at a home on North Raymond Street in Las Cruces. As KTSM reported, former Doña Ana County Magistrate Judge Joel Cano rented out his, quote, casita, or small home behind their house, to Christian Ortega Lopez. They met when his wife hired Ortega Lopez to install glass. The district attorney's office says Ortega Lopez was seen with multiple firearms in pictures that were posted on social media. You're seeing those now. The feds seized those firearms and arrested Ortega Lopez in February. Ortiz Loya allegedly admitted to entering the country illegally in 2023.
So nothing.
Charge of illegal alien in possession.
Nothing concrete on him.
Firearm. It's not known if the Canos knew of Ortega Lopez's alleged gang affiliation. Now this is a look at
who was alleging he was
made the arrest.
A member of a gang.
See agent vehicles parked all around the neighborhood. Both the former judge and his wife being charged with tampering with evidence and are expected in court tomorrow.
Initially, we came back here to arrest his wife, and as we started obviously conducting our interviews and started looking at evidence, we subsequently arrested Mr. Cano as well.
The couple is being interviewed and could face additional charges depending on that outcome. Officials have not provided further details on the Venezuelan nationals who were also arrested. We are following this story closely and will bring you the latest as soon as we learn more.
Trying to get an update on exactly what happened in court today. Let me see if this is the latest on the case. More details emerge about Judge Cano's arrest. The U.S. Department said late Friday that former... Okay, so this isn't an update. Said late Friday that former Dovia Ana County Magistrate Judge Joe Cano smashed a cell phone and his wife, Nancy, plotted to delete a social media account to prevent federal authorities from finding further evidence against a Venezuelan man accused of possessing a firearm living on their property. Video calls from the Dovia Ana County Detention Center allegedly showed Nancy Cano in possession of what federal authorities believe to be Ortega Lopez's fourth unrecovered cell phone. On March 7th, Nancy Cano made a call through a private messaging platform offering end-to-end encryption for greater security to a third-party person named only as Michelle. This is according to the DOJ. Nancy Cano then used her own cell phone to facilitate a video call conversation through another enhanced security platform between Michelle and Ortega Lopez, according to the federal authorities. And then on 4/20, a call between Nancy Cano and Ortega Lopez. Nancy Cano allegedly discussed with him deleting his Facebook account. The DOJ states in a news release that Ortega Lopez's Facebook account is a platform he previously used to share incriminating content, including images of the federal government that the federal government says connects him to being affiliated with the Trendy Aguagua gang, and images of him holding firearms. I don't believe it. They're going to arrest him and construct a case later. You're exactly right, DJ Dub. I don't believe it. They don't have anything on him. Meanwhile, the White House doing this disgusting stunt by posting signs out on the White House lawn. You saw my meme from earlier. That was what this was in. This is what that was in reference to. This is the meme. White House displays Republicans who made news for child sex crimes in 2025. Instead, it was actually immigrants they've deported.
The Trump administration is approaching its first 100-day mark with a full court press on the issue of illegal immigration, and they really don't want you to miss it. So they subtly and tastefully decked the White House North Lawn with dozens of yard signs featuring photos of people that the Trump administration claims are in the country illegally, each poster saying, arrest.
Man, arrested for child molestation or child abduction? Fuck. That's insane. Not convicted. They were just arrested for it.
Arrested and listing the alleged offensive with which they have been charged. CNN's working to confirm the identities and if there are actual allegations against these people. Until then, we are blurring their identities. That display was put up after the Trump administration announced nearly 800 of undocumented immigrants and a massive crackdown in Florida over the weekend, even though immigration has historically been one of President Trump's more popular issues. given he outperformed his first term high by 7 points earlier this year. Something appears to be changing. A brand new CNN poll released yesterday shows declining approval ratings for President Trump's handling of this issue of immigration. Overall, 45% approved now. That's down 6 points from March. 53% are expressing confidence in the president's ability to deal with immigration. That's still a majority, but it is down from 60% in December. 47% of the American people say they have no confidence in the president's handling of this issue.
Obviously, the president has signed over 200 executive orders and immigrations in as a nearly 100 days in office, and a lot of them have
Not high enough for this shit.
Some in ways
This is fascist propaganda 101.
Trump signed on his first several days in office. Today, they a lot of times also have to do just with messaging, including the one that he's expected to sign here shortly, Jake, inside the...
I have no doubt that many of the people on those signs
to open to reporters
are not guilty of anything.
to relate to publishing a list of all the sanctuary cities in the United States, for example, as the White House is really trying to keep immigration at the forefront of their agenda and also highlighting what they have done on immigration, because that was one of his key campaign promises, Jake. And yes, you've seen the border crossings go down significantly. When you look at the numbers from January and then February, March, and since the president has been in the Oval Office, you've seen just how dramatically those numbers have dropped. And so the White House is trying to keep the focus on that. That's why the signs are behind me here at the White House focusing on that, because they do know typically it's one of his strongest areas that he polls in with voters. And they saw him coming into the White House arguing it was a mandate to secure the border. They've been facing way more scrutiny lately, Jake, though, of course, over some of the cases when it comes to who they are deporting and whether or not those people are being afforded due process as a part of those deportations from the United States, and also whether or not they're abiding by court rulings. They were just pressed this morning about a little girl who is a U.S. citizen who was deported along with her mother, who is undocumented. And you saw Tom Homan, the president's border czar, arguing that was a parental issue. He kept pointing to the mother. That is something he's done previously when we've asked, well, what happens when a child who's in a mixed status household, one of their parents is deported? And they have often pointed back to just parenting in that case, Jake. And so certainly it is something that the White House is trying to highlight. But as you noted, those CNN poll numbers, the president's handling of immigration is down 6 points since March, as they have continued to face a lot of court scrutiny over this matter.
All right, Caitlin Collins, thanks so much.
I've got cat sneezing multiple times over here. You okay, buddy? You got some allergies? She mentioned a U.S. citizen. It's not one. It's 3 now. There are 3, at least, that we know of. 3 U.S. citizens ages 2, 4, and 7 swiftly deported from Louisiana. The cases have renewed concerns that the Trump administration's expedited deportations are violating the rights of both citizens and non-citizens. 3 U.S. citizen children from 2 different families were deported with their mothers by Immigration and Customs Enforcement during the early hours of Friday morning. One of them is a 4-year-old with stage 4 cancer. Deported without medication or the ability to contact their doctors. According to their lawyers, both families were taken into custody while attending a routine check-in with the New Orleans this week in New Orleans as part of the Intensive Supervision Appearance Program, which allows individuals to remain in their communities while undergoing immigration proceedings. Lawyers say the families were taken to Alexandria, Louisiana, a 3-hour drive from New Orleans, where they were prevented from communicating with their family members and legal representatives, and then put on a flight to Honduras. The cases have renewed concerns that the Trump administration expedited deportations are violating the due process rights of both citizens and non-citizens. I don't know how much more of a blatant or clear constitutional violation there can be than deporting U.S. citizens without due process, Alana Odoms, the executive director of the ACLU Louisiana, said, especially with some of those citizens being the most vulnerable of all vulnerable. Children, not just any children, children with medical conditions that are dire. U.S. government has never released data on how many U.S. citizens have been wrongfully detained or deported by ICE, but independent investigations have revealed that ICE has arrested, detained, deported, or issued detainers requests to local jails to hold a person in custody for thousands of citizens since the agency's creation in 2003. Lawyers representing the father of the 2-year-old U.S. citizen who was deported, identified as VML in court documents, filed an emergency petition in the Western District of Louisiana on Thursday seeking her release. The child was put on a plane to Honduras the next morning before the court opened. Hours after the deportation, U.S. District Court Judge Terry A. Daughtry, a Trump appointee, issued an order expressing his concern that the girl had been deported against her father's wishes, while stressing it is illegal and unconstitutional to deport U.S. citizens. The government contends that this is all okay because the mother wishes that the child be deported with her, wrote Daughtry, who has been lauded for his conservative rulings in the past, but the court doesn't know that. Daughtry said a May 16th court hearing to investigate his strong suspicion that the government just deported a U.S. citizen with no meaningful process. The order did not call for the girl's return or recommend any recourse for the family. According to the court filings, the girl had accompanied her mother and 11-year-old sister to the immigration appointment in New Orleans on Tuesday morning. About an hour later, her father, who had driven the family into New Orleans for the meeting, received a call informing him that the family had been taken into custody. That night, the girl's father was allowed to speak with her mother for only a minute before an ICE agent ended the call, lawyers contend. Lawyers say the man did not get the chance to speak to his partner or child again until after they were released in Honduras. Both of these mothers were held without the ability to speak with their co-parents and the guardians of their children while making this incredibly personal and difficult assessment about what was best for their children, said Gracie Willis, the lawyer for VML's father. Justice Department lawyers argued that the man's claiming to be VML's father had failed to prove his identity to the government despite requests that he present himself to ICE, adding that he also demonstrated considerable hesitation regarding the inquiries into his immigration status. The man's lawyer included VML's birth certificate in their filings, which shows she was born in Baton Rouge and lists the names of both her mother and father. The government is not disputing the immigration status of any of the 3 children. Instead, officials contend that the undocumented mothers opted to take their citizen children with them back to Honduras. In their court filing, Justice Department lawyers attached a note they say was written by VML's mother, saying that she was taking the child with her to Honduras. It is common that parents want to be removed with their children, according to Tricia McLaughlin, a spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security. Willis says ICE's refusal to allow the women to talk to their lawyers meant that there was no way to verify whether that was true in these cases. We have absolutely no idea whether they ever actually did give consent for their children to come with them, or if they did under what kind of duress and what other options were presented to them. Tom Homan, the so-called border czar, was at the White House press briefing today, insists they did nothing wrong. They weren't deported. Their mothers took them with them.
Are you concerned that due process, at least for the U.S. citizen children, is being flouted, and that the speed at which the enforcement is being done could lead to errors?
I'd said from day one, that if you enter this country legally, it's a crime. If you choose to have a U.S. citizen child, knowing you're in this country legally, you put yourself in that position. You put your family in that position. What we did is remove children with their mothers who requested the children depart with them. This was a parental decision, parenting 101. The mothers made that choice. And I tell you what, if we didn't do it, the story today would be Trump administration separating families again. No, we're keeping families together. So when a parent said, I want my 2-year-old baby to go with me, we made that happen. They weren't deported. We don't deport U.S. citizens. The parents made that decision, not the United States government. This administration is doing the right thing. Having a U.S. citizen child does not make you immune from...
Was it the last border czar, Kamala?
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Or she was just in charge of the border. They didn't actually have a fucking title for it, I don't think.
from our laws. If that's the message we send the entire world, enter the country legally. It's a crime. Don't worry about it. We got a secure border by enforcing our laws. We're not making this up. We're enforcing laws under statute enacted by Congress, and it's the right thing to do.
Can you give an update on?
Fucking ghoul, you fascist piece of shit.